Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's story. Today, we follow Tuna, a mother struggling to raise her son while facing relentless pressure from her former mother-in-law. When an impossible demand for $50,000 threatens to destroy her peace, Alex steps in. But his sacrifice only sparks deeper resentment and new dangers. Stay with us until the end to see how Tuna and Alex confront this storm. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world. The first light of dawn crept through the cracks in the wooden door, faint and fragile, as if it feared disturbing the silence inside. Tuna sat by the cradle, watching her child's chest rise and fall with each tiny breath. The boy's face was calm, unaware of the storm circling his young life. For Tuna, though, every breath he took carried a weight that pressed against her heart. The little house smelled faintly of hay from the farm, wrapping her in a strange mix of warmth and loneliness. She reached out, brushing a soft strand of hair away from her son's forehead. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Sleep well, my love. I'll be back soon." Her words were tender, but beneath them lay the quiet ache of sacrifice. Every morning was a silent war. Each step toward the door meant leaving behind the one thing that gave her strength. Yet survival had its own demands. Outside, the clucking of chickens broke the still air, dragging her into the rhythm of another day. She tied her apron, masking her weariness, and prepared to entrust her child to Mrs. Tang, the elderly neighbor whose gentle care was a rare comfort in Tuna's restless world. By the door, a small stack of paintings leaned against the wall. The colors were delicate, fragile, almost like her dreams. Each canvas was a piece of her soul, her only way to earn enough at the market to keep life going. She gathered them carefully in her arms. The brushstrokes held her hope, yet her heart trembled with fear. Because beyond her control lay something darker. Her former mother-in-law, a woman who had never stopped scheming to take the child away. That thought tightened Tuna's grip on the paintings. She stepped outside, sunlight pressing hot against her back, though her chest felt cold. The world was harsh, indifferent, but she had learned to stand firm. Every day was a battle, for her child, for herself. As she walked, the canvases swayed with her steps, fragile as her future. Still, she carried them forward, resolute, into another day. Dusk arrived with heavy colors, painting the road in deep crimson. Tuna's mother-in-law, her face lined with bitterness, strode toward the small house. Her heart was heavy with resentment, her voice muttering through clenched teeth, "Because of Tuna, my son is in prison." The little house stood quiet, its locked door a clear refusal. She knocked, her knuckles sharp against the wood, calling out Tuna's name. Only the wind answered back. Suspicion rose quickly in her chest. Had Tuna fled with her grandson? Her mind recoiled at the thought, yet doubt churned within her. She sat heavily on the doorstep, her eyes softening for a moment. The thought of her grandson lingered painfully, her last fragile tether to hope. Minutes dragged into hours, each one slicing away at her patience. Finally, she rose, her resolve sharpening. She would not give up. If Tuna would not open the door today, she would return another day. with demands no one could ignore. At the same hour, miles away, Alex's car rolled down the dirt road toward the farm. His chest carried a weight he could not shake, a mixture of longing and unease. The sun was sinking, and the sky glowed red, a warning of storms to come. As he approached, something caught his eye. The door to Tuna's house stood oddly ajar. A flicker of unease crossed his mind, but he brushed it away. Eager only to see her face, he stepped inside, the fading daylight spilling across the floor. "Tuna?" His voice was cautious, but then his eyes found her, bent over a steaming pot. Her smile, tired yet genuine, washed his worries away. They sat together at the table, sharing slices of sweet apple. Their words flowed quietly, weaving between talk of Alex's new contract and Tuna's modest earnings from selling her paintings. Yet, under that surface, unease stirred. Tuna lowered her gaze, her voice fragile as she asked, "Will your mother accept me? A woman who was once married with a child." Her eyes wavered like rippling water before a storm. Alex reached across the table, his hand wrapping around hers. "Don't worry," he said firmly. "I'll convince her. Leave that to me." His words were steady, but the shadow of doubt still lingered inside Tuna. She forced a smile, but deep down, she knew the future would not be so simple. The small room filled with warmth as they prepared dinner together, their movements weaving a quiet bond. Alex watched her carefully, his heart swelling with a fierce desire to protect her. Yet he could not shake the looming threat, her former mother-in-law. The soft simmer of the pot filled the silence between them, echoing the rhythm of their unspoken fears. In that moment, they were just two souls trying to carve out a place for love in a world that refused to give them peace. The sweetness of the apples lingered on their tongues, but outside, the night thickened with tension. Shadows pressed against the windows, heavy with the promise of conflict. Alex held Tuna's gaze, his eyes full of promise. He would fight for her, for the fragile family they were trying to build. But what neither of them knew was that the storm had already begun to move closer. The next morning, Tuna's routine repeated. Paintings in her arms, child entrusted to Mrs. Tang, her body bent to the will of survival. Yet as she walked through the market, unease gnawed at her. Something was different, something she could not quite place. Meanwhile, her former mother-in-law's mind worked with ruthless calculation. To her, Tuna's silence was proof of guilt. "She's avoiding me," the older woman told herself. "She dares to hide my grandson away." Her resentment sharpened into resolve. When she finally confronted Tuna days later, her voice was cold, her words cutting like steel. She did not ask for reconciliation. She demanded repayment. "The dowry," she declared, her eyes hard. "You think you can walk away free after ruining my son's life? Return what belongs to our family." Tuna's body stiffened. Her lips parted in disbelief. The dowry. It had been years. There was nothing left. But the older woman was unrelenting. "I don't care how," she said, her tone merciless. "Convert it. Sell what you must. It amounts to $50,000. You have 1 week to return it, or I'll take this further." The number struck Tuna like a blow. 50,000. Impossible. She could barely afford daily survival, let alone repay such a sum. Her chest tightened, breath faltering as fear took hold. That night, she sat in silence, her son asleep beside her, tears sliding down her cheeks. The walls seemed to close in, suffocating her with the impossible demand. But word of her despair reached Alex. And when he heard, his decision came swift and certain. He would not let her face this alone. If the past demanded its price, then he would pay it. When the week came to an end, the older woman returned, ready to push Tuna into despair. But instead, Alex was waiting. His presence filled the small room with a steadiness Tuna could not find on her own. Calmly, he placed an envelope on the table. Inside was the full amount, $50,000. "You wanted repayment," he said, his voice even. "Here it is. Tuna owes you nothing more." The woman's eyes widened, caught between triumph and shock. She had not expected this, not from Alex. Yet there it was. The money, undeniable, final. Tuna watched in silence, her heart torn. Relief and guilt mingled within her, a storm of emotions she could not name. For Alex, though, the choice was simple. He had paid not just to settle a debt, but to free Tuna from chains that should never have bound her in the first place. The money lay on the table, silent but heavy, as though it carried all the tension in the room. Tuna's mother-in-law picked up the envelope, her fingers trembling slightly despite her hardened expression. She had demanded victory, but what she received unsettled her. The payment stripped her of excuses. She could no longer threaten, no longer claim that Tuna had stolen anything. Yet instead of gratitude, her eyes narrowed. "So, this is how you protect her," she said coldly, fixing her gaze on Alex. "You think money erases everything. My son rots in prison while she walks free, clinging to another man." Tuna's heart clenched at the venom in her voice. She wanted to answer, to defend herself, but the words caught in her throat. Alex's calm presence steadied her. He met the older woman's stare without flinching. "I'm not here to erase the past," he said evenly. "I'm here to make sure Tuna and her child aren't dragged down by endless grudges. You've been repaid. It ends here." The woman's lips pressed into a thin line, anger simmering beneath the surface. She tucked the envelope into her bag and stood. Her steps toward the door echoed with resentment, and before leaving, she threw one final glare at Tuna. "Don't think this is over. Blood ties aren't so easily cut." The door shut with a sharp thud, leaving behind a silence that seemed to swallow the room. Tuna sank onto the chair, her hands trembling. Tears welled up, not just from fear, but from the weight of what Alex had done. $50,000. It wasn't just money. It was years of sacrifice, the kind of sum she could never imagine repaying. "Why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why would you take on this burden for me?" Alex crouched beside her, his hand gently covering hers. "Because you're not alone anymore," he said softly. "Because your struggles are mine now. I don't care about the money. What I care about is you and your son." His words struck something deep within her, something she had long buried under fear and exhaustion. For so long, she had carried the weight of survival alone, never daring to lean on anyone. Now, someone stood beside her, unshaken even by debts and accusations. But the peace was fragile, and both of them knew it. Word spread quickly in small communities, and whispers began to follow Tuna wherever she went. People gossiped about her past, about Alex's bold defense, about the scandal that seemed to cling to her no matter how she tried to move forward. At the market, she felt the stares. Women leaned toward each other, voices hushed but sharp. That's her, the widow whose husband is in prison, and now another man pays her debts. The words stung, even when spoken behind her back. Tuna gripped her paintings tighter, her chest burning with humiliation. Alex noticed the weight pressing on her, and though he tried to shield her, he couldn't silence the town's tongues. One evening, as they walked home together, Tuna finally spoke the fear gnawing at her. "Maybe your mother was right," she murmured, eyes fixed on the ground. "Maybe I'll only ever be a burden to you." Alex stopped in his tracks. He turned to her, his expression fierce. "Don't say that," he insisted. "You're not a burden. You're the reason I want to fight harder. Let them talk. Let them judge. They don't know you like I do." His conviction warmed her, though the doubts lingered. Could love truly withstand so much weight from the past? Meanwhile, her mother-in-law was not finished. Though she had taken the money, bitterness festered deeper. To her, the repayment was not closure, it was humiliation. She had wanted Tuna to crumble, not to be lifted by another man's support. She began visiting the prison more often, venting her fury to her son, who listened from behind the bars. "Your wife dishonors us," she seethed. "She hides behind another man, parading her so-called innocence." The son, worn down by prison life, could only clench his fists in helpless rage. His mother's words fed his resentment, twisting what remained of his love for Tuna into something darker. Back at the farm, life pressed on. Alex worked tirelessly, his hands rough from labor, but his heart lightened each time he returned to Tuna's side. Slowly, he tried to weave normalcy into her days. Shared meals, laughter with the child, evenings spent watching the sunset bleed into the fields. There were moments, fleeting yet precious, when Tuna allowed herself to imagine a future free from shadows. She watched Alex play with her son, lifting him high into the air, the boy's laughter ringing out like music. In those moments, her heart whispered of hope. But nights were different. Alone in the quiet, her fears returned. She thought of the words her mother-in-law had hurled at her, of the glares from neighbors, of debts that might rise again like ghosts from the past. She would curl beside her child, tears soaking the pillow, wondering if love was enough to protect them from everything. One night, Alex found her awake, staring at the ceiling. He sat beside her, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Tell me what's on your mind," he urged gently. She hesitated, then confessed, "I'm afraid your mother will never accept me. Afraid my past will keep following us. Afraid you'll regret choosing me." Alex pulled her into his arms, his voice firm against her doubts. "Listen to me. I don't care about the past. I don't care about anyone's opinion, not even my mother's. What matters is us. I'm not letting go, no matter what storms come." His words were like a shield, wrapping her in warmth she had never known. For the first time, she allowed herself to lean against him fully, trusting his strength. But outside their small world, the storm was indeed building. The mother-in-law's bitterness deepened into obsession. The money had been taken, but the grandson remained her ultimate prize. And now, more than ever, she believed Tuna had to be punished, not just financially, but emotionally. She began plotting ways to strike again, whispering in corners, reaching out to relatives who shared her resentment. Her schemes grew sharper, each fueled by the belief that Tuna did not deserve peace. For Tuna and Alex, the days ahead promised no easy calm. They had love, they had resolve, but against the weight of family grudges and society's whispers, their bond would be tested again and again. Yet for now, as the moonlight poured softly through the window, Tuna rested her head against Alex's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. For the first time in a long time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in the fight anymore.